Well, hello everyone. How are you? Happy Thursday to you. To all our friends and family down on the Texas coast, um, our hearts, thoughts, and prayers go out to you. It's going to be a long recovery, folks. As those who live in the South, particularly in that region of our country, it's not only hot, it's humid. And I can only imagine what it's must going to be like in the weeks and months to come. So I thought it might be a good idea that as I start preparing for the radio program on Late Night in the Midlands, that might have an opportunity to still do presentations, but in a much more personal one-on-one conversation format. So that's what we're going to do. I was awakened this morning about 3 o'clock. And I don't know how many of you know, but 3 o'clock is a very magical, special time spiritually. My hot beverage. And if you will be sensitive, if you are in fact awakened at that period of time, there's a message, something is wanting to get communicated to you. And in this case, for me, I was thinking about a number of the emails that came into me about the program yesterday. And people were talking and asking more about faith. And I can tell you this, faith is the most powerful part of our being. It is, in fact, I believe, that spark of divinity. Faith is, in fact, one of the secrets that is not taught to humanity, unfortunately, but it is one of the secrets that is the cornerstone of creation. Now, since you and I are sentient beings, we are created in the image of our Creator, and that's what makes us unique. These bodies, unfortunately, dominate the central topic, and rarely does the other two aspects of our being get much attention. And the one that people think that they're actually taking care of, and that's the soul, the spirit, all too often rely upon others to carry that burden. So I thought what I would do, I put a presentation together and we'll go through it, and then I'll come back at the end of this and we will come back and discuss this. This is you. This is me. It's amazing how many things in the universe, the visible universe, is a sphere. Whether it be a galaxy, whether it be the universe, a solar system, a star, a planet, a moon, a cell, a living cell. They're all spheres. Think of your soul as a sphere. Your spirit, your soul has to have, well, it can't simply be without some containment. Now, it can be endless, but it does have boundaries. And when you begin to think of yourself as a sphere, well, this affords you a lot of opportunity to grow. For instance, once you understand that you are a sphere, when you meditate, even prayer, you can actually, because remember, the brain doesn't know the difference between what is real and what is fantasy. You're the deciding factor. And if you can begin to see yourself encompassed as a sphere, well, you have boundaries. Think about this. In a proper social business setting, it is understood that everyone has a boundary. It's your sphere. You don't intrude beyond that. And if you do, well, you're just uncouth and you will be told that. I'll tell you in a second. Back off, Jack. Listen, I can hear you. I can even smell your breath. That's enough. I don't need you in my face, you see? And that's because you violated my space, my sphere. So if you start thinking about it in that direction, then you can begin to understand others have a soul sphere. This is a dynamic creation. We don't give it enough credit. We don't think about it. And so often when we do, well, you just got to sift through the real nuggets to what isn't necessary. But all things have spheres. I'm convinced that although we live in a very illusionary reality, because it is an illusion. I'm talking to you, you're hearing my voice. There's a resonance that's going, there's a frequency that's being received, and this is all processed through what I call the soul sphere. I have said all souls have a spirit, but not all spirits have a soul. I think that's an absolute fact. I think the soul, a lot of people think, and I know my good friend Jeff and I will talk more about this, and it's merely, sometimes it could just be simply synonymous. Because I don't know if we as a species have been free enough. We've been in the dark ages. And all of what we have built our core beliefs around, everything that we have built our realities around, both individually and collectively, has been under the shadow of the dark ages. And as we start emerging out of that past age into a new age, you know, it's just a very unsettling period. So I think that there is a distinct difference. Now, as we're studying in the Sefer, that if Abraham, other great magicians who knew the secret arts of creation, could create souls. Now, isn't that interesting? Now, these beings that they created couldn't talk, apparently, and were very limited because only the creator can make a thing talk, or so it is taught. Throughout life, we interact with other souls, spirits. I mean, every person you know, Every person you encounter, look at them now as a spirit, as a soul. You know, that spirit. And I would agree with Jeff. I'd say that it is that spark of divinity. And maybe the soul is that element that gives expression to consciousness. And maybe we could define consciousness as spirit. Think about that. Because why would it be necessary for a spirit to communicate by frequency, by harmonics? In other words, words. I believe when we get back there, those of us who will actually begin to ascend to that next level, and ascend, folks, let me just tell you, this morning as I was meditating on this, in my Christian upbringing and teaching, it was very clearly demonstrated that in Paul's vision that he speaks of, he saw heaven as 7 levels. Now, it was never taught about what is each level. I mean, what is it? Do you have a baseline that you barely get in? And, you know, the Supreme is up here. And how does one progress if, for instance, let's say you just got in by the skin of your teeth? Think about this. And tie this into the whole thing about creation. Listen, had this discussion last night with my wife. So many people, and I'm speaking from my Christian experience, we got into this belief that somehow or another, Jesus died for our sins, we have forgiveness, and by God, you know, yeah, we're imperfect, we're going to go on through life, and when we die, we get into heaven. Now, think about this. Think about this just for a second. So, and I'm going to use some crass words, so warning ahead of time. So you were an asshole while you lived on this earth. You were an asshole all the time you were here. In fact, the bumper sticker was made for you that Jesus loves you because the rest of us think you're an asshole. And you never evolved any more beyond the fact that you think that you're a guy, that you dominate, you're the superior one, your sports team, and hanging out with the dudes. And as you got older, you know, and you never got out of that. So now you're going into heaven. What is there going to be a transformation of suddenly your soul traits, the color of your spirit? You never worked on it. You're lazy. Think about this. And when you start looking at this, then you can't say then this talk of where people try to say, well, this is New Age. Listen, I'll take the New Age over the Dark Age anytime. Are you hearing me on this? Again, I'll take the New Age over the Dark Ages anytime. The fact is, most people never evolved beyond what they think that they can barely get by with. And when we go throughout life and we interact with these other souls, these other spirits, that the complexity, but we never think about it. This is time. Time is measured by observable events. Call them soul events. And just so you understand, time is only relative in this plane of existence. Time does not exist in the spirit realm. And how you will remember time, depending on how many times you have to get sent back through, we call soul events. and they're measurable. So in order for those soul events to be remembered, there has to be an observer. You. Talking about you. Because within you is the only place time actually exists. Gets deep, I know. So each encounter that we go through life, you should be able to both give and receive, to add to and to take from. It's the balance, folks. But along the way, we get out of balance. All life exists within a sphere. It's the way of creation. And it has no limits, no bounds. When you begin to think about our lives, or living in lives of other lives that are dependent upon a much bigger lives, it never stops. Yeah. Earth, look at Earth. We all live in this. The lithosphere, you and I live in the biosphere. There's a cryosphere. There's an atmosphere. We live in that. And we live in the hydrosphere. Wow. You know, when I look at this, the images that are being flooded into my spirit, my soul, it can almost be overwhelming. And as I said, all of the universes, there's not just this one. There's multiple universes. How do you know that, Wayne? Well, death. Now, you could take the position that, well, from a physiological point of what happens at death is that the disintegration of each cell on a quantum level begins to lose its cohesion with the others, and as it begins to simply dissolve, it dissolves into nothing. In one way, that's true. But again, even as Einstein had to admit, you're not dealing with the soul. And to Einstein, we just leave those things to others, the philosophers. So we come in through a birth portal, right? And we don't give this enough thought. We really don't. I believe that there may come a time for humanity. Instead of sending our children off to be taught merely one perspective of the life experience, that we really begin to teach them about the soul integration experience. But in any case, this process, by the way, is a death process. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, when you go through the birth portal, it is a death portal because you can't escape the inevitability of the conclusion of what's going to happen next to you. The death portal. But here is a little secret I'll share with you. This is the life portal. We've got it backwards. When a person enters in to this realm, they've entered in through the death portal because the physical body is going to die. The spirit and soul know. We should teach as part of our being, our soul experience about death from a very early age. That way, we're never afraid of it. And maybe we begin to value this life the way it was supposed to be. Think about that. So, the death portal is, in fact, the life portal. Yeah. Earth is an ascension sphere. I've told you this before, and the more I learn about this, the more intrigued I become. We're a magnet. I mean, there must be a freaking sign out there in the universe and the multiverses that says, here's the spot, guys. This is where you want to come. And they're here. They've been coming here before we were here. It's unique. It truly is. And let's talk about us, you and I, because really that's all that matters for right now. We'll deal with the other characters later. But here's the sad truth for our species. Most don't make it through. I don't know if they get there's good foundation for reincarnation. I mean, there are some case studies that well, no theologian has been able to explain. So, do we come back through? I don't think all of us do. No. And also, I think that those who make the choice to follow a dark path, I don't think they get a second chance through. But it's very clear that not all make it through, and there's a reason for that. They have no understanding. And I put "the" up there. It should be "they," but boy, isn't that almost a Freudian slip? They have no understanding. How about if I use the old Elizabethan English? And the problem is, folks, most of our species have no desire to learn. They don't. It's sad. They only care about the body. And they become lazy and depend upon others in religion. They never know about their souls. They never get to that place of developing their soul. I believe that the characteristics of the soul, we haven't even begun to scrape the surface on this. But what happens when this happens is that people give up. They just give up. Most end up in poverty. And even those who escape poverty and achieve a certain level of luxury, convenience, ease of living, social status, need I go on? And that's as far as they go. They never. And then even when they have now access to try to pursue this, because they did not have a foundation to initially work with, well, it leads to a lot of different tangents. Most have no faith, not even in themselves. And thus their words are dead. They live a lifetime without ever realizing their full potential. And this is what we're talking about, is faith. In why It is the key, the cornerstone to your balance, to get things changed in your life. Because let's be honest with all of us here. If all of us truly believed that our words had power, my God, think about it. Then the problem is most of us have no faith in ourselves. Listen, we talk so negatively to ourselves. How many of you curse yourselves? How many of you talk to yourselves and you put yourself down all the time? You say to yourself, I can't do that. I fail every time. And you just go on and on and on. And what you're not realizing is that you're invoking the very powers of faith, but to work against you. So I'm going to teach you something here, how to begin to turn things around. You must learn forgiveness. And you must learn to forget. Otherwise, your faith is of no benefit. It's worthless. No, I'll retract that statement. It's not worthless. It will become your worst enemy. It will sabotage you. It will undermine you. It will destroy relationships with spouses, with children, with brothers, sisters, bosses. It's a fact. I'll tell you something else about not being able to forget. It invokes fear. Now, I want to thank Cecil for this. She put this on the comment page yesterday, and I think it was great. Look what fear actually is, folks. False evidence appearing real. Don't tell me there is no power in collective consciousness. Don't tell me there is no power in my words. Don't tell me that the sentient being with a single thought cannot create a world. And we do. Our collective consciousness has created the hell that we see today. This is not the result of any God, any judgment. Throw that crap out the window. It's manure. We've done this. We, by using the collective consciousness of faith. Because you see, we don't know which direction we're going as a species. But we are a fear-based species, and this is the evidence of it, folks. We create it. Only if you learn to forgive is not enough. You must learn this, folks. You must forget. Otherwise, your faith will fail. Now, I learned this out of the sacred scriptures. The scriptures in so many ways, whether it is the Quran, whether it is the Torah, whether it is the Bible, the Vedic, all contain the secrets. Now, you may say, Wayne, where is this in the Bible? I'll help you out on this. Mark 11:25 and 26. You have to forget, folks, when you're forgiving. Otherwise, it doesn't work. You also must begin to believe that your words have creative power. Because you are living your words right now. Now, there are other external elements out there because I can trace those back to many of it's because you violated or actually you sowed it into your life. And part of the problem here is that we don't understand. We don't believe in our words as creative. But in your sphere, you create this with what you speak. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And how many go to their grave? They lived a life of disappointments and lost potential. You know, the Creator does weep. You see, folks, it's not dependent on a God to change us. It is dependent upon us to take the responsibility to stop the tyranny, to stop this old age system. And I'm telling you what, there's another living sentient being who's had enough of it. So I'm going to help you out here. To those of you who really do want to get free, for those of you who are wanting to find that balance. So on a sheet of paper, I want you to write out the names of every person that you've had. You may say you've forgiven them, but you can still remember. Write out the name and write out what they did to you. Put this on a sheet of paper. Hopefully, you don't need more than one. Now, do this. You need to draw a circle, one that's big enough for you to stand. Now, you should do this probably outside, but if you do it, it works. And because it will ignite a faith element within you. So in one large enough for you to stand in, and another smaller one within your reach, put a circle, right? Then you, right, you stand in the blue one, the big one, and then in the small one, you fold up, crumple it up, whatever. Hey, if you want to get lighter fluid on it, put lighter fluid on it. You have to have some matches, though. I'll tell you at the same time, you need some matches. Now, you need to understand this. Your words are power. How many of us just love your favorite music artist? Why? You're drawn to that frequency, the harmonic, the words. Your words are power. Your words create. Your words affect. Your words are life and death. Proverbs says, you eat the fruit of the tongue, whether it be good or whether it be bad, whether it be life, whether it be death. So many of us speak death into our lives. We speak death into our children. We speak death to the ones that we love because our words are harsh. I see politicians speaking death all the time. Because if they spoke life, you wouldn't see the confusion and the rhetoric coming from whether it be the U.S. Capitol or a state capitol. We speak death. Our species speaks death. If we spoke life, we would see life. But we don't. All we see is death. Why is that? Well, if you stop and think about it, what is the news? The news is nothing more than death. It's bad news. That's what news is. Death. You see, we have been in the dark ages, ladies and gentlemen. Someone wrote me yesterday, and I think that you may have a point. She said, well, I certainly hope we have gotten into the age of enlightenment, but I have to be honest with you. It is damn dark here still. Right on, sister. All right. Now, stand in your circle. This is your spear. Now, you have to do this. You can't just think this. We're not developed enough to understand the powers of telekinetics, telepathic. We don't have that. We're development, but we're not at that point yet. We haven't even made the kindergartner yet. Declare out loud so you can hear yourself. And with faith, what is faith? Faith is that you know what you speak is from you. As a sentient being, it is fact. You have made a declaration. It's part of being that power of you have that you haven't understood. Now, declare, I am a sentient being, and I freely not only forgive, but forget this offense. If you need to read it out, read it out. Do it. Now, when you do this, then reach outside your spear and within the smaller circle and burn the list. And do the same within your consciousness. See it within you, that thing that has hindered you, crippled you, held you back. See it dissolving as you watch that list catch fire and turn into ashes. This is the cause of so much of your own problems, folks. It impacts everything. I can tell you for a fact, virtually all health problems are stemmed because of unforgiveness. It creates arthritis. The book of Proverbs says that it dries the bones, dries out the joints. The marrow becomes sour. The marrow is supposed to be the life essence, the sweetness. It will cripple your finances. No matter what level of success, you will always be hindered. It will sabotage relationships. It becomes generational. And worst of all, it hinders us from loving not only each other, but ourselves. The words, folks. So let's talk about this. As a seed sows, there is a time in which that seed derives its nourishment from its environment. Now, the seed will produce after itself, but it will reflect the soil that it's grown in. Could be weak soil, could be luscious soil, in which we've seen this if you do gardening, where you get a very healthy plant, but it produces very little. And for the most part, that's what a lot of us are. And the parallels can be, again, you see, you know where my foundation comes. And this is really the parable in Mark 4. The sower sows the word. Well, it's the same thing with each of us. That principle is a life principle. And so many of us get to a point where we achieve a certain level and then we hit that ceiling. We can't seem to get above it. And a lot of times that's because of issues that we have left in the past. You have to learn, folks, to forget and then begin to apply the principles of faith. It's an activator. When you become so much aware that every word you speak, and if you get to that point, that's where the Proverbs comes in. Even a fool seems wise who keeps his mouth shut. You'll start carefully. You notice that a lot of times, and you can see my eyes because I'm searching in that data bank for the right word. Now, we're going to be learning more as we go through the Zephyr, how important. We're going to start learning about how the ancients used what we call magic. It's just a lost knowledge. But they understood the power of words. And if I can help you begin to see where there could be health issues. Listen, unforgiveness also impacts blood pressure. Unforgiveness will also impact diabetes. Your body was never designed to live with that inside of it. It becomes a cancer. And is it just a coincidence that in this day and age, we see the rates of cancer exploding, particularly among young adults? Is it just a coincidence that we see within many young adults? The natural thing is that you're already trying to figure things out. So you have those emotions, you're entering into adulthood. Why there's so much anger? You see, anger is merely the expression of faith, fear. A fear wouldn't work unless the faith was energizing it. In my past, I've worked around some very well-known people, particularly in the ministries. One such person was Joyce Myers. Knew Joyce when she was still teaching out of her house there in Fenton. I want to say something about her, though. No matter what your opinion is, if you would just look at her life, and I can remember standing in Grace Christian Center, right there off Gravois Road, and I'll never forget this. She looked right at me and she said, "Wayne, I am going to have the largest women's ministry in the world." And she did. She accomplished it all. Now, was that God's anointing? Was that God's favor that he just happened to particularly picked her out and said, okay, No. She wrote a good book, The Battlefield of the Mind. And actually, that principle dates back millennia ago. But the fact is, the principle works. It is all up here. The creative power that you and I have. And again, remember, your environment is a result of your own words, your creation. That's why meditation is so important. I'm not talking prayer. The way I look at it, learn who's speaking the prayer before you start talking to the prayer. Learn about yourself. And these are one of the power elements. Faith is so vitally important. This world does not exist without it. So I hope this has helped. I will tell you this. You do what I showed you to do, you'd be surprised how much health issues begin to resolve themselves. Again, bitterness is the root cause to the greatest percentages of our diseases, regardless of the environmental. And listen, that plays it. I get it. But I know this. You see, when I hear that, I keep saying to myself, but wait a minute. You left out the most important factor in that equation. Us. Now, if that's being done, it's being done by one of us. Now, if enough of us clearly believed in the faith of our words and our thoughts, we could take them down. They know that. So do the gods. The gods must have faith in order to exist. Maybe why a lot of the old ones died. Might be why some of the ones we think of today that are alive are dead. But the faith is going to be fed off of one way or the other. And maybe it's because of who we are, Homo sapiens. Maybe that's the thing that attracts these spirits, both good and bad. Why religions fight for the faith of our souls. Might be a good time for us to start fighting back for our souls and begin to understand that when we speak, I fully expect my word to have effect and not return unto me void. Now, where did I hear that before? Why, that's in the book of Isaiah. Well, if the Creator speaks, I don't think he's hoping that his words will come back void. So let's talk about hope. Hope is good. Hope has to be part of faith. But so often, hope replaces faith. And then it disappoints. I hope so. Well, I'm certainly hoping that's going to be the case. Hell, throw the dice. Get about the same results. Let me tell you when hope is good. So, let's do a hypothetical. I've taken and used the laws, the physical laws of the universe, and applied them into my life. I've sowed liberally. I have nourished. Now, you come to me and you say, Wayne, are you expecting so-and-so? Now, I could look at you and say, absolutely. Not only is my faith working, but the hope is right there bringing it to pass. Well, why? Hope disappointed is despair. How many of us have been where you've heard the expression, their hopes were dashed. You know, that's the first thing you can do to absolutely undermine a person. So that tells you we have to be judicious with these power tools. So if I apply hope, am I hoping it's coming to pass? No. I've already spoken it. I know there is a law. So, hope, absolutely. Hope is the sustainer of my faith. See? So, as we begin to get this unforgiveness out, we employ how to forget, leave it. As Mark 26 says, it is leave it, let it go, walk away from it. Think of it as a pile of your manure. I don't think too many of us want to stay around where we've defecated. I know it's graphic, but hey, it drives the point home, right? So, just by doing these things, and listen, you're going to fail starting out. I'm just telling you, you're going to stub your toe. No one gets good at this the first time around. You got to practice it. When you go to your doctor doesn't know medicine, he practices medicine. The weatherman doesn't know the weather, he's practicing weather. Think about this. You know, the team goes out to practice. It's the same thing. You've got to get good at it. And if you're already in the midst of a storm, I'll give you a piece of advice. Learn to quiet here. That out there will begin to come down as well. And then start expecting. Laws are laws. And laws exist, whether they're in this temporal plane or no matter how many different planes of existence. There are laws. So all of this combines into the help that as we continue to get better at this, I'm telling you folks, people are going to marvel at what we're doing here. You're a part of something that's very special because you're fully realizing your full potential. And every one of you. And age, I don't care if you're 2 or if you're 92. That potential is waiting to be released. And so with knowledge, we gain wisdom. We'll start applying those principles. And it'll be a great example for others to see. All right, folks, be kind to one another, and we will talk real soon. All right, bye-bye.